Welcome to Lawyer Business Advantage. This podcast is dedicated to helping attorneys earn more money, get better clients, and spend more time with family. I'm your host, Alay Yajnik, founder of law firm Success Group. Smart business guidance for small law firms begins in 3, 2, 1. And it's my pleasure to welcome back to Lawyer Business Advantage after a 30-second hiatus, Dominic Grew with Elevate Business Coaching and Law Firm Success Group. Dom, how are you?
I'm doing extremely well. Thank you for asking, Alay.
and I'm glad to hear you say that after
Yeah.
recording 2 episodes and now the third one back to back to back. So that's wonderful to hear. We were talking about hiring, and if you haven't checked out the last 2 episodes, you totally should. We really unpack a lot of interesting things about hiring. And this one, we're going to dive into tactics. So you had mentioned a really good story in the last episode about using LinkedIn. Please recap that for us, and then we're going to jump off into some other things too.
Yeah, so I think we were talking about how finding your staff, the foundation on which you're building your firm is not dissimilar to kind of finding clients. It's a little bit takes longer, but it's the same type of exercise. And in that, I mean that you're competing, right? You're trying to find out, you're trying to reach and connect with those who are attracted to what your firm can offer them, right? So that's really your job. So then you have to think about, where do these people hang out, right? And so that requires a sitting down of, well, what does this person look like? What do they do? What's important to them, right? Doing the same for your own firm. But so where does that take us? For many people today, LinkedIn is where they kind of hang out. And when I say hang out, it means they're looking at their own profile. Maybe they're looking for a job. Maybe they're watching for other people they know. But for many people, they spend a significant amount of time on LinkedIn. And so for my law firm clients, I encourage them as one of their tactics to make sure that they, number one, post the position on LinkedIn. Okay,
and
that's
Dom,
kind of.
I just want to stop you right there. Yeah. There's so many different ways to advertise on LinkedIn. So when you say post on LinkedIn, what are you specifically referring to there?
Yeah, so everybody has the ability to post. This is the wonderful thing about the age in which we live of social media. Everybody has a microphone, so you can literally go into your profile, Alay, and I could do it after we hang up and say, hey, I had a great session with Alay Yajnik today. We talked and did a podcast on recruiting. I can post that from my personal profile. It's so simple to do. I can add some text, I can add a photograph, I can add a video. Everybody has the ability to put their stuff out there, and then people that are connected with me or know me will see that.
Yeah.
And if they're interested in the topic that I'm talking about, they may read more.
So you're talking about just that typical LinkedIn free post, not like advertising for a job which costs money.
Correct. There is that as well, but I always believe that there's a ladder in all of these things. And the first rung is, number one, is make sure you're on there, okay? And number two is you can post for free. It doesn't cost you anything. So just post something. If you have a position that you're looking to fill, and you have a job description, you could put it on there if you want, or you could simply say, hey, look, I'm looking to add to my team. If you know somebody who's interested, reach out to me. So that's kind of the first rung.
Got it.
I'm going to give you the second rung. If you can add a visual on there, people are more likely to look at it, because they kind of are inquisitive and say, well, what's going on? So I had a client last week. I suggested it. I said, hey, you've just moved into a new office. You've like a nice new work environment. Why don't you put a picture of your office on there? Say, hey, we've moved, and by the way, we're also expanding. We're looking for a senior associate or paralegal, whatever it is. But let people see that you're out there. People are more likely to look at it if there's a visual image for them to look at, and if it's one that you've picked, picture of you, that's great. And then the third, and this is like the holy grail. Not all attorney entrepreneurs will be up for this, the suggestion of this, but a again, I'll ask my clients, well, why don't you just put a video on there? And they say, well, what would I say? And I said, well, you'd say exactly what you said in your job
Yeah,
description,
read the
posting,
job
whatever it is.
description.
Hey, everybody, I'm looking for a senior associate. I'm looking for a pilot, whatever that is. Hey, ideally, we're looking for somebody that, you know, likes to take long walks at lunchtime, whatever that is. Tell them what you're looking for, uh, and make it real. And if you can have captions, then people can actually see what you're saying as well. They don't need to necessarily do that, but it's a way of you will get more people will see what you posted. They're more likely to engage with it, and it gets your message out in a way that's really simple and easy to do. And it doesn't cost you anything other than your time. And it's something that Alay and I like. We can easily show somebody how they could do something like that. It's really going back to that. Attorneys tend to look at a wall. It sounds like it's really difficult. This is very simple to do. You just need to know how.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's super easy to learn. So these are some great tips and ideas about using LinkedIn. There's a couple of other things that they can do too. So I'm always of the belief, because this has served me well throughout my career and continues to serve me well, that you should always be on the lookout for talent. And this is where I start when I'm working with our clients, Dom, is who do you already know who you'd love to have on your team? And oftentimes they have some names, sometimes they don't have any. But attorney entrepreneurs, if you can start to build that, just have it, a dream team list. You don't have to write it down, but just have it in your mind if you need to. But like the people who, if you had the ability to bring on board, anyone of your colleagues who you respect, you really like, you think would be a great fit, who are those people? Because when the time comes, and you never know when that time will happen, they may be interested, or they're
Mhm.
also more likely to know people who are interested, which brings up really tapping into your network. And Dom, how do you kind of leverage when you work with clients? How do you work with them to leverage their network in the hiring process?
Yeah, it's a barbell strategy. So I mentioned there the LinkedIn, right? You're kind of throwing it out there, right? Like you're casting a net. But back to the other thing, most lawyers already have a pretty extensive network. And I know there's some there that listening to this will say, well, I don't. I would take issue with that. You know more people than you could ever imagine that you've met, right? Your job is to harness that network. Uh, the best hires tend to they tend to have a connection to your firm in some shape or form. So to your point, Alay, very often the lowest hanging fruit of all is to say, who do we already know? Right? Who do your employees know? Who can introduce you? It's like a warm introduction when somebody says, hey, I know this law firm is retiring. I know some of the individuals there, they seem to be high caliber people. I know they're looking. That's an easy introduction to make. So leveraging your network, thinking about who you know already, asking the people that you know who they know also. Uh, and the other thing as well is, very often we come across people in our careers where we might be on the other side of them, right? Of a matter or whatever, but you're impressed with how they conducted themselves, how they made an argument, how they interacted, and you kind of admire how
Yeah.
they do things. Those are great people. So as people are listening to this, maybe you're not hiring at the moment, but maybe you've kind of taken in what Alay said about always be on the lookout for talent. Ask yourself, who are those people that they don't work in my firm, but I've seen them in action. I'd love to have them here. Who are those people? And I would go further than you, Alay. You say you don't ask for a list. I think a list is a great idea because it actually gets it out of your head and down on paper, and you can always add to it and you can delete it. But the basic thing of always being on the lookout is great advice.
We talked about being, always on the lookout. We talked about leveraging your network. We've talked about LinkedIn. What are some other hiring tactics that you recommend to your clients?
you know, it's going to sound silly, but just talking with people, right? Talking with people, having a sense for what's going on, what's going on in the marketplace. What are some of the themes that are out there? What are some of your competitors doing? Right? I mean, going back to the talent thing, there's plenty of business out there, but you are competing for your business, and you certainly are competing for the talent for the team uh, that you have at your firm. So you really want to have an idea, and this sounds silly, but what's going on in the marketplace? What are other firms doing? You know, are they what are they? What steps are they taking to find talent, and what's working? Who are the people that uh, may not be happy? I'm not talking about ambulance chasing, but you should have a sense for how are things shaking out, or what are other firms doing? Are rates going up? Are rates going down? You know, uh, what you know, what are the dynamics of the market that you're looking to draw from? Because if you have a solution to some of those problems, that uh, again, that makes it a competitive advantage, and
Yes.
right, and you have a reason to talk, and it doesn't need to be a conversation about, hey, I wanted to talk to see if you're interested in coming to the firm. It can be a conversation about, hey, what are you seeing and hearing out there in the general marketplace, and getting perspective. So I think that's always, because you build relationships up over time, and as you said, Alay, you never know when things are going to change. Things can change pretty quickly when an unforeseen situation comes up. How about you? What are your thoughts, Alay?
Yeah, I think that is totally on point. What I would add to that is, and as part of this is kind of sneaky, but when you're doing your research and finding out what other law firms are doing, be on the lookout for their ads. And
Hmm.
if you see one that's really good, copy it. You
Right.
tweak it a little bit so it's yours, but it's obviously going to have your firm name and all that, so there's no plagiarism issue. You can copy it and use it. Why reinvent the wheel? If there's something that you find out there that really jumps out at you and stands out, go for it. And that brings me to my next point, which is it is very competitive out there. And one of the ways you can really separate yourself from the competition is to have an absolutely awesome job posting, one that grabs the attention of a candidate. And that may take, you working a little bit harder on the job ad itself. Um, it means you may even want to hire somebody. If you want to hire a marketing copywriting person to help you with the ad, that's a service that Dom and I provide for our clients, and it's included in the coaching program. We have a template for hiring for whatever positions they're looking for. We have those templates. Then we work with our clients to tweak them and make them really unique and make them stand out. But if you don't have access to that kind of a resource, well, one, consider reaching out to us. But
Mhm.
you can also contact, people who do a really nice job of writing compelling stuff, whether it's a marketing person, maybe another attorney, maybe a relative, but really having an ad that's going to pop out, be original, and really grab the attention of the person that you're looking to bring on board.
Yeah. And again, when you think about that, it's just it's to grab their attention. They see enough where they say, huh, that's interesting, right? And then take action. I mean, that's really what you're looking to do, is to stand out in a way that compels them to say, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that would be like.
Right.
Maybe I should talk with them. Yeah,
Exactly.
good idea.
So we've talked a lot about, ads and posting ads and how to write ads and what separates small law firms from larger law firms and how you can make your small law firm more compelling. That's all attracting candidates, attracting potential employees. But all of that doesn't go anywhere if the rest of the hiring process is either a mess or doesn't exist. So let's talk a little bit about the interview process. So let's say you have all these applicants coming in, you've got to do something with them. And the number one mistake I see attorneys make is they do every step of the hiring process themselves when they have an alternative. And so typically when we're doing this, they will look at resumes and then bring in interested candidates for an interview. They're skipping a very powerful time efficient step, whether they do it or whether they can offload it to someone else. And that step is the phone screen. So Dom, tell us a little bit about what the phone screen is and how it can help.
Yeah, Alay and I, we're always talking about with our clients about, are they making the most efficient use of the time, right? And so you can waste a lot of time, and so one step to that is having a screening process, right? And it doesn't necessarily need to be done by the managing partner, the owner of the firm. It's a task that you can actually have somebody else do, right? That could be internal, it could be somebody outside. But really, what you want to make sure that you're not doing is spending time on candidates that aren't going to be a good match. So think of it as an initial screening process. Someone's going to talk with them, have a phone conversation. They're going to talk a little bit about the posting. They're going to ask a few basic questions, and at the end of the day, they're going to decide, is this the candidate that's worth moving to the next level and having the hiring manager speak with. So that saves time, right? I also, one other thing it does, Alay, as well, is it doesn't make all of the hiring the responsibility of the attorney or the managing partner or the firm owner. It engages other people in the process as well, and that's actually quite meaningful because it shows that you respect them, but it takes some of the pressure off by engaging others in the process, because you can ask simple questions like, hey, what was that guy Alay like? Did he answer your questions? Did he seem to have good communication? They can actually pick up a lot, right? And some of those soft skills are really important and are going to be important when and if you hire them as well. So it's good to have someone else do the screening, saves you time, but you can also they can add a lot of value in terms of screening for things or little observations they make. But the big thing they do is they save you time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then there's the interview, and there's all sorts of stuff we can talk about interviews, but we're gonna have the time to get into that today. One of the things that I recommend, and Dom, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, is because these are technical positions, detail is important, style is important, critical thinking is important, skill is important, craft is important. Oftentimes I find that a test, when done legally and done in the right way, can be incredibly useful. What are your thoughts on that?
Big fan of that. We've all had situations in our careers where somebody has put on a magnificent performance, has got through the process, and when they actually start in the position, someone says, who hired this bozo? Like, right? There's a step that's been missed, and that thing of how they actually would do the job. So trying them out in something that's simple. Here's a case study, right? What did you think, right? And ask them how they'd work through a case study, or maybe it's to do with drafting of a document. It's something where you can actually give them a time limit, ask them their thoughts, and just check them for kind of number one, the speed at which they work, and then I call it the accuracy or substance. How good are they at what they've already told you they're brilliant at, right? So just think of it as it's a little bit of a practical test, because people can talk a great job, but at the end of the day, they need to be able to do, and you kind of need to be able to evaluate that. So yeah. I think and encourage my clients, when they are able to do that, to do it.
Yeah, there was a client I worked with. Well, we're still working with them, but about 6 months ago, they hired an attorney, and they did choose to administer a test. So we worked together, put together the test format, and then in our next coaching session, they had an interview scheduled with someone. So I chatted with them and said, "How did it go?" And he said, "Oh, it went awesome." And I said, "Great. How did the test go?" So, well, it's really interesting because I gave this attorney a test. The potential client was another man. So I gave him the test. He completed it. Then he came in for the interview, and I'd had a chance to already, because he sent me the whatever he was asked to draft up, his analysis. It was totally wrong. I said, "Oh," I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh." He said, "But you know what? When he came in, we talked through why he answered it in his approach. We ended up having a really good conversation. He learned a few things. I loved his approach, and I ended up hiring.
Well,
So that's really, really interesting that even though,
yeah.
they don't always have to get the right answer. That's not as important as the thought that went into it, being able to have a good debrief conversation with the
Hmm.
person afterwards and picking up on little things like the person got it done and sent it in ahead of the interview. There
Yes.
were no punctuation mistakes. Like the attention to detail was good. And then they were able to have a fantastic conversation. So those are some of the value items that you can get out of using a test.
Absolutely. And really you're looking for those candidates to exhibit what you want them to do in their job, right? So it's not just about the test, it's well, why did you do that? It sounds like in that case of the example that you gave there, the attorney actually learned a lot from the discussion of why that particular candidate had pursued that approach.
Yeah, and the
So,
candidate learned a few things too because it was a
yeah,
junior candidate, so it was really good. Um, and let's say as we're going through the hiring process here, the last thing we'll talk about today. Let's say we get through the hiring process, the person accepts, the person comes on board. Awesome. The tendency of a lot of attorneys is when they get a resource because they're really already buried for work. Let's just throw everything at them at once. And I'm too busy to work with them and train them. So here's all this stuff. Go get it done. I'm going to be over here. And it's no surprise then that, these people tend to quit and they don't last very long and the
yeah.
attorneys get frustrated and it's just a big mess. And so bringing employees on board and ramping them up right is so important. Dom, how do you, when you work with your clients, how do you manage that onboarding and ramp up process?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like if somebody said, "Hey, you want to come work for our firm," and you said, "Well, what's it like?" And they said, "Well, you know what? You're going to have no direction, no supervision. We're going to throw you in at the deep end." You'd say you got to be crazy, right? Who would want to do that? So what I encourage my clients to do is when they're excited, they're going to pull the trigger on a candidate. Tremendous. I ask them, so walk me through what are your expectations for this new hire? Walk me through their first 3 months. What does that look like, right? And what that does is it prompts them to think about, well, what does that look like, right? And they ultimately come to by going through that process of like mapping it out. Here's the milestones. Here's the expectations. We're going to start off. We're going to introduce you to a few of these cases. You won't be thrown in at the deep end. But mapping that out is actually it builds confidence in the individual that's coming on board that you're not throwing too much. But they need to have an expectation of what's their first 3 months going to look like at this firm. Of course, we're looking for it to build as competency is displayed, right? But you need to have a roadmap. It's really unfair to expect somebody to come into a new firm and be hired, and everyone's excited, and then they're just kind of thrown to the wolves. That's not going to work. You've got to be as methodical with the onboarding as you were with the recruitment process, because it's extremely frustrating when somebody is hired and it unravels afterwards because somebody has not been, I'll say, cared for is not the right phrase, but they haven't been shepherded to navigate their first few months in the job, and it's really important to get things off to a good start. At least put out a roadmap out there. It can change, it can be accelerated, it can be you can pull back from it a little bit. This is a little trickier than we thought, but you've got to have a plan.
Totally. Dom, thank you for the fantastic work you've done for Law Firm Success Group's clients and are continuing to do. Thank you for the fantastic work you do for your clients as well. It's always a pleasure having you on Lawyer Business Advantage. And if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, it's really easy. I am the only Dominic Grew on LinkedIn, so look me up on LinkedIn. You can find me there. If LinkedIn is not your jam, elevatebusinesscoaching.com. Reach out to me there. I'd be happy to talk with anyone listening who wants to learn more. And thank you, Alay, for having me. We always have a good discussion. I always learn some stuff, and we have some fun also.
Absolutely. Everyone, that's Dominic Grew with Elevate Business Coaching and Law Firm Success Group.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Lawyer Business Advantage podcast.
One thing that would really help both us and other new potential listeners is for you to rate this show and leave a comment in iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you tune in to listen. And I want to hear from you, so connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know what you think of this episode. And if you are a solo or an owner of a small law firm, and you're looking to earn more money, attract better clients, or reduce your stress, we would love to talk with you to see how we can help. Request your free law firm assessment by visiting lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. Again, that URL is lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. We look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you for listening. My name is Alay Yajnik. Until next time, remember, you can seize freedom, you can embrace happiness, you can build your perfect practice.